Hello everybody, welcome back to the video, and today I'm going to be reviewing Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. So this one is the fourth movie released. It was released after a little bit of a break from the series, but it picks up where the third one leaves off with a hunt for the Fountain of Youth. Except Jack has already been to the fountain. I thought that was a really cool twist. Let's just get right into this. So, immediately, we get something to set it up. You get your inciting incident. Basically, each movie has one, whether it be shown on screen or not. We always get something. With this, it's the recovery of one of Ponce de Leon's men. So, that's a cool starting point because we actually start with the Spanish, not with the English or any of the pirates. So immediately they're expanding the world to include another country that hadn't been featured previously. So another really good thing about the opening is it's just really funny. Gibbs is placed on trial for being Jack, and Jack Sparrow is the judge at the trial. It's one of those scenes that's kind of difficult to explain why it's so funny, but it just is. It's really funny, and I would actually say that that's one of Jack's best escape sequences, if not his best. This movie has a lot of the great action of the previous movies, not as much in terms of the effects. I mean, because the last two had Davy Jones and his cursed crew. The first one had the skeleton crew of the Black Pearl. This one had mermaids, and that's pretty much it. The rest of it is used on action sequences. Speaking of which, this is a really good one for the action sequences. A lot of them are great. The duel at the fountain is absolutely fantastic. One of the best action sequences in the show. Another fantastic sequence in this movie is Jack and Barbossa going to the Spanish camp to get the chalices. That's a really cool sequence. So I want to talk about some of the acting here. I forgot how Johnny Depp is really good in this movie. I remembered him being really good in the first two, and then a little iffy in 3 before going back to watch it. Before going back to watching all of them, I forgot how good he actually is in this one. There's that sense of adventure from the first one. Not as big, but it becomes more interesting for him when he finds out that he can get the pearl back. And so he immediately agrees as soon as he finds out that he can get the pearl back after Barbossa lost it. Speaking of Barbossa, this is basically a Barbossa movie with just a little bit of Jack Sparrow. Because while Jack gets a lot of screen time, a lot of the character work is spent on Barbossa. And I would probably consider this to be Barbossa's best movie. Maybe. It's either this one or his introduction in The Curse of the Black Pearl. So, he's very good in this movie. I love the ending sequence where he says, "In payment for me missing a limb, I will be taking this sword, his ship, and his crew." That's a horrible Barbossa impression. Impressions of these characters, they're not my strong suit. So let's talk about some of the antagonistic forces. So, I mean, even though Barbossa is kind of antagonistic, he's not on the same side as Jack, but they both have the same goal, which is, well, actually, no. Because Jack just is kind of along for the ride. He wants the pearl back. Barbossa is still Blackbeard, who is fantastically portrayed by Ian McShane. And if you remember that name, it's because he also played Winston in John Wick. Yeah, I've seen this movie that many times. I've seen the John Wick movies a few times for some of them, and yeah, I've seen them all. But yeah, just I just didn't put two and two together to think, oh, that's the same guy. He is really in this movie. He is absolutely an incredible villain. And I mean, so each villain has their gimmick. His gimmick is his sword. Which I just gotta say, I love the decision to have his gimmick be a sword. Because basically the sword controls the Queen Anne's revenge. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just wave his sword around and the ship will move by itself. It's really fun. Okay, so speaking of some stuff, let's get to the creepiest sequence of the movie, White Cat Bay. Yeah, this might get the win for the creepiest sequence in the entire series. I don't know what it is. It's just that sequence I've always found to be slightly creepy. But this time, yeah, it's definitely creepy. It's still creepy. But so let's talk about the ending of the movie, because I feel like I've hit a lot of the main points. Another thing I want to bring up, the effects for this one, while there's not as many, they're still incredible. If there's one thing this series has done right, it is great CGI. But into the movie, Jack, Barbossa, and Angelica. Barbossa's right behind them. Jack, Blackbeard, and Angelica. Angelica is the daughter of Blackbeard, who is a love interest to Jack, which I thought was an interesting choice, and I actually kind of liked the decision to give Jack a love interest. It was something that hadn't really been done in the previous movies. They arrive at the Fountain of Youth. Barbossa arrives. Oh, by the way, Blackbeard is going after this because a one-legged man allegedly going to kill him, Barbossa. And funny thing is, literally, if Blackbeard had stayed away from the Fountain of Youth, he might have lived. That's just kind of an interesting thing to think about. Anyway, so they get there, they fight for a few minutes, and then the Spanish show up and they destroy the fountain. And then Blackbeard gets stabbed by Barbossa, who does the aforementioned act of taking the sword, the ship, and the crew. And then Angelica tries to get the sword out of her father, only to cut herself, and so Jack must use the Fountain of Youth. And here's the thing. I think Jack intentionally gave Blackbeard the cup that would kill him. It's portrayed in the movie to be, and he got him mixed up kind of thing. But he purposefully tries to hand one over. So Jack is honestly a lot smarter than anyone thinks. So I genuinely think he purposefully hinted that the wrong cup was the one that would kill him. So I honestly think that Jack intentionally gave Blackbeard the wrong cup. Anyway, the abilities of the fountain work, and Angelica is healed and given all of the years of Blackbeard plus what he would have lived, which probably wouldn't have been that much with that particular cut. So, yeah. And then Jack abandons Angelica on an island where she tries two separate attempts to make Jack regret the decision. The first one being a massive stockpile of treasure, and the second one being that she's pregnant with Jack's kid. Which I think Jack's reaction is kind of funny to that. And so Angelica, getting frustrated, wastes her one shot because she gets one shot on trying to kill Jack, and that fails. And so Jack, well, moves his boat off into the sunset, where he meets up with Gibbs, who has recovered the Black Pearl and an entire fleet of ships. And so Jack comes up with a plan to break the pearl out of its glass bottle case. And then we get my favorite scene of the movie, which is, for the fact that this has some of the best action in the series, a really fantastic villain, and a very underrated Johnny Depp performance. It's the ending that I think is the best scene of it, because Gibbs says, you had the chalices, you had the mermaid's tear, you could have lived maybe forever. And Jack says, maybe I will, discoverer of the fountain of youth. Which is an interesting line, because it's saying Jack knows he might not be able to live forever, but his name will. He is Captain Jack Sparrow, after all. So, overall, On Stranger Tides is a lot better than I think a lot of people remember it to be, and a very fun movie in general. I would highly recommend checking this one out. And a scale of 1 to 10, I will give it... I just had a lot of fun with this one. I'm going to give it a 9. This was a fun movie. Yeah, that is it for my On Stranger Tides review. Like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Bye.